Good morning, everyone. We are Reinova Cybersecurity team, and today we are discussing about automotive cybersecurity. We will start with our brief presentation as speakers. Then we are going to describe our companies and provide a general overview of this modern challenging field, which is accelerated by the urgent need to guarantee cyber physical security. Also, on modern vehicles, which are becoming digital, software-defined, and interconnected to the internet network, as well as every smart communication device nowadays. I'm Giuseppe Rizzi, automotive cybersecurity specialist in Reinova. I manage the cybersecurity team about pen tests and perform penetration tests on CAN bus protocol and diagnostic protocols like OPD and UDS.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Nicola Pandiscia. I work in Reinova as automotive cybersecurity analyst, and I also support the pen testing phase with Giuseppe, especially about the radio communication and wireless technology protocols and related interfaces. I perform also threat analysis and risk assessment, also known in short as TARA, on vehicular architecture, and I support my colleagues during all the assessment needed by the clients. Let's go ahead. But who are we? What is Reinova and what we do? Reinova is a company in the automotive industry specializing in testing and validation of powertrain components, power cell modules, everything related to electrical mobility, so batteries and empowering, so the future of electrical. Is anyone saying something? Sorry, could you please stop talking on background and, switching off the microphone? Thank you. Okay, so Reinova, as I said before, specializes in powertrain components testing and validation procedures, and the main site is here in Soliera, which perform testing and validation on powertrain components, batteries, and so on in automotive field. But what about also the Reitech division, which is a branch of Reinova company, which hold software house, including AI development, software development, automotive cybersecurity division, but also software development, automation, and IT, supporting all requests by clients and digital services, both internal and external. So we have 4 sites, respectively placed in Soliera, a little town in province of Modena, where I perform mainly testing and validation on powertrain components. A second site in Reggio Emilia, where it's located mainly part of the Reitech branch, but also EMC and RED related testing, but also some IT services and accredited, experiments. The third side is in Graz, so in Austria, to provide international relationships and also representative services and consultancy. And then finally, since October 2024, a fourth site in Limidi, that is nearby Soliera, was opened for abuse test on batteries and powertrain components. Let's go ahead to the next slide.
Okay. In this webinar, we are going to cover an overview of automotive cybersecurity by pointing out the causes that have led to the awareness of this topic, covering historical background, why to be compliant, and ensure the security of devices, including what are the most common attack vectors and types of attack that can occur on the vehicle. We will cover the pivotal regulations that every manufacturer and suppliers must follow in order to be compliant. At the end, we will show the workflow to reach compliant and an attack simulation. So, the rapidly growing connectivity of vehicles is opening up many opportunities for new functions and attractive business models. At the same time, the potential for cyber attack on vehicle network is also growing. So such attacks threaten the functional safety of the vehicles and could cause functional damage. Modern vehicles are a complex ecosystem composed of several ECUs. It depends on the complexity of the vehicle and are connected to each other through one or more CAN buses and capable of communicating with the outside world, for example, using over-the-air communication or vehicle-to-vehicle, vehicle-to-infrastructure, and vehicle-to-cloud. While these features are innovative and simplified manufacturer and driver, for example, with a software update activity, but on the other hand, they can cause serious issues from the point of view of vulnerabilities and vehicle exposure to externally executed attacks. So the automotive cybersecurity is the protection of vehicle systems, network, software, and data from malicious attack, unauthorized access, or manipulation. It involves securing various components and systems in modern vehicles, such as infotainment system or ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance System, and electric vehicle systems, which rely on digital technologies, including sensors, microprocessors, actuators, and communication systems. About the cybersecurity in automotive, there are different key aspects. In particular, the encryption. We need to ensure that the data transmitted between vehicles are encoded and can only be decoded by authorized parties. With the authentication, it's important to verify the identity of users or devices before granting them the access to the vehicle system, often through password, biometric analysis, or digital certificate. The third one is the intrusion detection system. It's important to monitor the vehicle network to detect any suspicious activity or attempts to breach the system. A secure communication protocol, it's very important because we need to protect the data as it is transmitted between different parts of the vehicle and between vehicles and infrastructure. And at the end, we have the secure software development. This situation is very important because when we flash a firmware, we need to implement secure encoding practices and rigorous testing to identify and patch vulnerabilities before they can be exploited.
So let's get forward, providing some historical notes about the main aspect, the main events during the recent years, which claim the importance of cybersecurity. Everything starts in 2015, as you know, with the most relevant hack, most famous one, at least, about the engineer, security researcher, Walasek and Miller, about Jeep Cherokee hack, which found out different vulnerabilities which let malicious user exploit some defects, some vulnerabilities within head unit, telematic units on board mounted in order to obtain privilege, obtain a remote code execution and controlling critical functionalities such as steering, such as braking, such as air control, air ventilation control, air conditioning, but also multimedia interaction and a lot of functionalities which are going to be handled by CAN bus communication. And this is really critical in terms of security. This denoted a lot of risk that could come out from not secured system, not properly managed, and this could lead to also high economic damage for the brand, for the road users involved, and what could be the impact, the consequences. So, for example, Jeep had to recall a huge number of vehicles previously deployed within the market in order to patch, to resolve the vulnerabilities found. And after that, in 2018, also BMW, another great car maker, found 14 vulnerabilities which could help malicious user to gain again remote access and privilege on CAN bus, exploiting critical functionalities. So through these findings in 2018, but also in the afterwards years, ISO say 21434 was issued as internationally recognized standard to manage road cycle security engineering, and this was done according to international experts about the field in order to address the security engineering issues found, and have a general guideline reference for all the problems and the vulnerabilities that could be found within vehicles. So thanks to this, in the next year, especially in 2020, 2021, were issued by UNISI the most important regulation about automotive cybersecurity, involving how to implement a risk-based approach for the organizational level, but also on the vehicle security, with the regulation R155 and the R156 in order to ensure the proper security on overall infrastructure. But what about today and the future, with the future insights and innovative ideas that could be integrated? We could have the integration of AI tools used everywhere, kind of not only in IT field, but also in vehicle communication, and in order to prevent damage and cybersecurity incidents, AI tool will detect automatically and will improve capability of detection, but also the possibility to recognize possible threats. And so also the automation of pen testing will for sure enable and improve the automatic check on all the vulnerabilities that could be exploited within a vehicle system and related components. But also threat intelligence will be probably one of the most important topic with the collaboration of international communities in order to safeguard system of different system everywhere. And also there is a continuous need to improve in security also in electrical vehicle infrastructure and charging systems, and also autonomous vehicle, because are newly born technologies and they need to improve also in the security aspect. Let's go again to the next slide.
Okay, about attack vectors, there are different attack vectors through infotainment system. For example, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, keyless entry, cellular gateways, or digital radio, or different operative system configuration that are insecure, or update media, or Android and iOS app on the driver's phone synchronized to the car's network, malicious audio file burned into HD, and so on. On the other hand, we have a different attack vector on electronic control units and about the CAN bus, like spoofing on CAN message from an external device or a compromised ECU, abuse of legitimate operation, remote code execution, where the manipulation of the communication can exploit vulnerability in the code of some ECU. Or another attack vector type of attack is the denial of service, where the attacker sends different useless message on the CAN bus by interrupting the communication. All that example can cause safety threats. In particular, they can cause the forced acceleration on the vehicle, or turn off the engine, disable brakes, or inflate airbags and take control of the steering wheel.
Okay, this mentioned by my colleague were the most common attack, but what about unusual attacks? What about complex scenarios with that no one could even imagine if without thinking about it, reading about some discovery on this kind of attacks, which some did and prove to be realizable. Fine. Regarding this, we will just add something about cyber attack on physical matter. So about manipulation of hardware, but also low-level software function like firmware configuration, extract the possibility to extract data, and the capability to reverse engineer source code in order to gain, information, proprietary information about how the system works, how the system could be compromised and modified by expert user with malicious intentions. So what about this? We had, for example, a tier 1 client which asked us to perform hardware hacking on a PCB they were designing and producing for their clients. And even it's not so likely to happen and so common to see, a threat actor, as you know, could be in place to physically extract, manipulate, tamper PCB, chip memories, for example, which are mounted on board architecture and could extract sensitive data, personally identifiable information, and code, even if are present control, because in some cases there are vulnerabilities that could be exploited to extract the firmware itself from the board and manipulate some configuration, even in presence of secure boot sometimes. So it's really important to prevent this to happen and properly secure the system. We have also the capability to do such hardware hacking and testing in order to safeguard this kind of system as a procedure, which were also mentioned in Black Hat Europe conference. We know the tools, the hardware needed to program flash chips and also extract data from onboard connectors. Okay, let's go further.
Okay. Why is it so important to be compliant? The compliance with the UN regulation number 155 or UNR 155 is crucial for the automotive industry due to the increasing integration of technology and connectivity in vehicles. This regulation is a mandatory cybersecurity standard to protect vehicles from cyber threats, ensuring that manufacturers and suppliers implement robust cybersecurity measures and mechanisms. The compliance with the UNR 155 is important for different and several reasons. The first one is vehicle safety. We need to ensure that vehicles are protected against cyber attacks that could compromise safety features and systems, such as braking, steering, and acceleration. We need to perform a data protection because it's important to protect sensitive data stored in vehicles from unauthorized access and theft, safeguarding personal information and vehicle data. It's important because it's a legal requirement. So OEMs and suppliers must comply with this regulation to meet legal requirements and avoid penalties for non-compliance. It's more important about consumer trust because we need to demonstrate a commitment to consumer safety and security, which can enhance brand reputation and consumer trust. A market access, because the compliance is necessary for vehicle manufacturers to gain and maintain an access to global markets that adopt UNR 155 standard. And at the end, the risk management. It helps to prevent potential disasters and reducing long-term cost, as secured by design. If the OEM has an infotainment system where there is a communication to the internet, it's important to define an HTTPS protocol and use TLS and SSL protocols, for example. So another important legislation that goes hand in hand with R155 is 156, which deals with the management of electronic control units software updates in order to ensure a proper management of update packages. And OEM must ensure integrity, confidentiality, and authentication of the software packages that will be loaded inside the electronic control units. So the regulation 155 and 156 cover several vehicles. The category M, which includes vehicles for passenger transport, such as cars and buses. Category N, which includes all vehicles for the transport of goods, such as trucks and vans. Category O, for trailers and semi-trailers. And the category L, which includes all vehicles with fewer than 4 wheels, such as motorcycles and mopeds. The UN regulation imposes cybersecurity standard in the automotive industry to protect vehicles from cyber threats. The regulation requires original equipment manufacturers, or OEMs, and suppliers to implement the Cybersecurity Management System, or CSMS, to ensure the integrity of vehicle cybersecurity in the organization, including the supply chain and process. In fact, it's very important for cybersecurity risk management processes help to identify, assess, and mitigate risks, and the compliance with the regulation is mandatory for all vehicles manufactured from July 2024, and failure to comply with this regulation can result in penalties and or suspension of sales in markets where the UNECE regulation apply and can damage a company's reputation.
Okay, but what about the workflow needed for, industry actors, industry stakeholders to reach compliance to this regulation mentioned? Once the regulation and the standards reference framework is well known and defined, the next step is to define the activities which should be performed in order to be compliant. So first of all, we need to define a well-organized concept analysis and gap analysis in order to define within design phase, previous then the production, a joint activity to assess, to identify the risk remediation areas and the eventual entry points for attackers, and prioritizing risk management in order to, focus on the major effort which will be dedicated to improving security posture, especially for the most critical attack surfaces. So at the same time, it's really important to assess an organization's security posture with the organizational processes, strategies, and policies in place, and what is needed to fill what is lacking at the current time, in order to be secure with the overall organization, overall structure of the company, and not only on vehicle level, but also on organizational level for the company to be secure enough. And this could be done with the CSMS, a risk-based approach to define well-organized procedures, policies for also the IT governance, password handling, and a well-defined handbook of best practices and procedures to manage the overall security. And this set of procedures and best practice should be also considered concerning software updates on ECUs mounted within a vehicle, and so providing an SUMS, a well-organized software management system to support this process. And to do that, it's important also a threat analysis and risk assessment in order to identify and obtain estimation of the risks involved within a company and the related vehicle design. And then the final phase involves the real emulation of attacks, the most practical activity, which is the pen testing one, to better understand how well the system reacts to threats, to cybersecurity threats and exploits, and to what extent it's needed control, it's needed the mitigation on some critical risk areas in particular, and how to think of proper remediation. So let's go further to the next topics. What about cybersecurity procedures, methodology to test and protect vehicles, not only vehicles, but also organizations, according to UNICE standards? As I mentioned before, the first step to do is a concept analysis, because as suggested in standards like ISO 21434, the concept phase, it's really important because, in digital landscape today, it's really important to consider security from the beginning, from the system product design, in order to prevent operational, financial, and reputational or health damage. And to do so, it's needed to perform a risk assessment and related analysis before production of vehicle components and whatever. Because thanks to these results of the analysis, it's possible to prioritize risk and remediation in order to properly manage the security before production. So concept analysis is always a consulting service based on a given application, a certain type of product or vehicle developed by a client, for example, a manufacturer, an OEM, and this system should be assessed related to risks, cyber risk, and with the identification of security mechanism needed to safeguard the whole system, and controls to be implemented in order to reach compliance with industry regulation currently in place. So addressing properly the cybersecurity risk during the design in conjunction with a preventive analysis around a system is fundamental and unavoidable. So it lets us save money with prevention, because as you know, and they always say in medicine, prevention is always better than cure. And this is valid also for technological domain. So considering cybersecurity, not just health, and this way prevention helps to save a lot of money, prevent serious damages and adverse consequences, also on financial domain, on financial theme. But what about the next phases? Concept analysis suggest a guideline to employ an approach for security from the beginning, and so to ensure a multi-layered protection is the better way to ensure a guarantee for the whole system, in which eventual compromise do not imply overall compromise of the system, but just compromise of some part, some abstraction level, allowing for an optimization of the overall protection that could be useful to guarantee and avoid security and avoid critical compromise with at least the highest risk scenarios. And this is done thanks to the evaluation of cybersecurity CEA properties extended with also the authenticity and the reference stride model for threats. What about the next phases? We could talk about the gap analysis, which is useful within the previous activities done to establish a well-defined CSMS. And in this phase, we evaluate the overall security posture of a company, of a manufacturer, for example, and also the organizational security governance. On the basis of these elements gained, we recommend measures to protect the company's sensitive data, the related security policies and systems from threat actors and adversarials. The goal is to establish a reference handbook with guidelines to be followed and procedures to enhance the security of the overall security of the company and also on vehicle level. And this is preparatory activity to be led in order to establish a structured approach to security. And thanks to also an organizational chart, we can describe roles and responsibilities for each employee within the manufacturer organization. And so we need to identify the gaps in policies and procedures required, and then we go ahead, we go on with a continuous monitoring and improvement of the security practices in place. After this, we can have a well-defined CSMS and SUMS, which are the systems, the organizational approach to the management of overall cybersecurity within the organization, and also the management of software updates on the ECU mounted within a vehicle. So this could be done by performing some steps. It starts everything with a general assessment of the cybersecurity posture of a company and the measure already in place, and with the identification of missing procedures or security measure, especially handling incident detection, response, also disaster recovery, and such themes. But then we have also to properly manage the risk identified and treat them properly in order to obtain compliance with the best practices. And again, we need a continuous up-to-date auditing and monitoring process on the policies and measures in place in order to feel safe enough at every moment. And this is valid also for the software update management, because it needs to establish a well-defined plan to, flashing updates on whole ECU mounted within the architecture, ensure a proper delivery mechanism to have secure update campaigns, and also ensuring a version control and rollback possibilities in case of failure, as well as a continuous monitoring and reporting of how well it's gone, the management, the update process. Again, another important phase is TARA, as mentioned before, which stands for Threat Analysis and Risk Assessment. It's a well-defined procedure by the international standard ISO 21434, and it consists of different phases. These 7 are the one described by the standard: asset identification, threat scenario identification, the whole mentioned on the left side here in the slide. And the goal is to evaluate vehicle security posture and protect attack surfaces from compromise through the identification of cybersecurity risks, present a suggestion for hardening measure mitigation to properly manage risk and associated to potential threats. This analysis starts with the initial phase of identification for every physical logical element of the electrical or electronic architecture and the same corresponding properties to be safeguarded. Then we have threat scenario identification, in which, according to the STRIDE model shown before, we identify the possible threats to the architecture, and we evaluate during impact rating the impact on 4 different categories, such as safety, financial, operational, privacy perspective, and related impacts in terms of damage that could occur, and the extent to which a damage could impact an organization or road users in general. What about the next phases, which are the attack path analysis? For example, to list the possible action that the threat actor could perform in order to penetrate the system, to compromise part of the system or the whole architecture. vehicle architecture. And these are the ways through which an attacker could compromise the system. And these are also related one to another, because attack steps could be described thanks to an attack tree, like the one mentioned on the left side here, which shows different steps which could be performed by an attacker in order to compromise some communication, some data, or just some functionalities of the system. According to this, attack steps are linked with the threat scenarios, and each threat scenarios could generate some one or more damage scenarios. This could be done to have an overall relationship between the different attack possibilities and capabilities, and through a feasibility estimate, evaluates elapsed time, window of opportunity, knowledge of item error components, expertise, and equipment needed to perform each attack. We have an estimation of how an attacker could do such an attack, and how is the feasibility related to it. And thanks to this, we apply a proper risk treatment decision to accept, avoid, reduce, or share a risk, depending on the risk level. We have a risk matrix describing the risk levels going on a scale from 1 to 5, from a negligible level to a highest critical level, as the one shown on the right corner upstairs. And then we can go to the next phase needed, which is the last one, penetration testing.
Yeah, about the penetration testing, it's an authorized simulation of a cyber attack on a system or network. The goal is to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in the system, just as a malicious attacker would do. There are different types or scenario of pen testing, and depending on the level of system knowledge. In particular, in a black box scenario, the tester has no prior information about the system, and they try to simulate. It's a simulation of an attack by an external hacker. In the white box scenario, the tester has an access to detailed information about the system, such as vehicle configuration and source code. And at the end, with a gray box, the tester has a partial knowledge about the system. He tried to simulate a realistic situation in which an attacker might have some information. With the penetration test, we have different benefits. For example, a real security assessment, because with the pen test, we simulate a real attack, providing an accurate assessment of all system and all security about the system. Identification of misconfiguration, because it reveals configuration error that could be exploited by an attacker. It helps to improve security posture, allows vulnerabilities to be identified and correct before they can be exploited. It's important for the regulatory compliance, because it helps demonstrate compliance with the cybersecurity regulation. And at the end, it's important for a risk reduction, because the mitigation of vulnerabilities reduce the risk of cyber attack incident and subsequent financial losses. Another important element is a fuzzing test. With the fuzzing, fuzzing is a technique of sending random or pseudo-random inputs to a program to cause abnormal situation or system crash. These random inputs simulate user errors, attacks, and other unexpected conditions which could lead to discovery of vulnerabilities. With the fuzzing, fuzzing helps to discover zero-day vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are the ones that no one knows about yet, and therefore are the most dangerous. After that, we can start to talk with CAN protocol. The CAN protocol, or Controller Area Network Protocol, is a vehicle bus standard designed for efficient communication between electronic control units, ECUs, in vehicles, reducing wiring complexity and cost. The protocol was officially released in 1986 and has since adopted in various contexts beyond automotive applications. CAN has a topology of a multi-master and allows multiple ECUs to send messages without a single master node. So it's more flexible and efficient because the data exchange between ECU and it's easy to add new nodes on the bus. About the CAN protocol, there are two main versions. The first one is as an identifier, or ID, equal to 11-bit, while the CAN 2.0b, or extended, has a 29-bit identifier. And in general, it's used for heavy vehicles, such as trucks and buses, because they have more functionality than the car. In CAN protocol, there are different key features. For example, the arbitration. Every message has 2 bytes, or 1 it's recessive, or 0 is dominant. And with the CAN bus, the arbitration is very important for real-time communication and prioritization through arbitration. Because it's allow the highest priority device to continue transmitting if multiple devices attempt to send data simultaneously. This ensures that critical systems like airbag, anti-lock braking system, or traction control can communicate in a fast way, enhancing vehicle safety. In all CAN frames, at the beginning of the frame, there is the message label, usually referred as ID. So the priority is based on it. Another important element is the differential signaling, because enhancing reliability by mitigating electrical noise. And at the end, the error handling. With the error handling is a mechanism for detect and signaling errors, such as the cyclic redundancy code, or CRC, for error checking. About pen test on CAN bus, there are 3 main procedures to follow. The first one is perform a complete discovery of the system with a sniffing on the link. In this way, it's possible to analyze messages that are exchanged on that segment and perform an initial identifier action association. This situation is a black box scenario because the attacker haven't any information about the system and he doesn't have a DBC or database scan, which is a text-based file format used to describe a CAN database. It contains information for decoding raw CAN bus data into physical values or human-readable form. After that, we have a custom DBC. We can start with the injection attack. We can perform message injection, where the goal is to customize messages to overwrite real messages which travel on the link. And in this case, we need to watch what happens in the system. Finally, at the end of the test, as a last test, we perform a fuzzing action, where the attacker sends random or pseudo-random packets with random IDs and payloads. The action is necessary to test the robustness of the ECU on the link and observe how the tested system or device under test behaves when unconsidered input are sent. As I said before, this method helps to discover bugs or problems that are not considered during standard operation.
Okay, let's have a look at radio open testing. So, what about the context? Modern vehicles reflect the same trend of as you know, with an increasingly wide interconnection to various type of nodes, like in IoT, for example, with different services, with different needs and capabilities, empowering different kind of communication and services. What about this? We know that communication, wireless communication, are spreading everywhere with different kind of protocols and different kind of communication for control, for sensing. These are all included in a great density of connection service-oriented communication, which are also part of automotive industry in the vehicle to everything description, which is a great superset, including a lot of different kind of communication. For example, we could have a vehicle-to-vehicle communication, so inter-vehicle networks to enable communication for vehicle to optimize, path for good transport, for remotely controlled fleets. And, we could have another subset, which is vehicle to infrastructure, in which we could have real-time signaling with the roadside infrastructure network in order to enable a proper sensing, a proper safety enhancement within roads, even maybe in a future without the control of a driver. So automated and remotely controlled, and thanks to this whole communication and sensing infrastructure. But another subset is vehicle to pedestrian communication, which enables the pedestrian, cyclist, people walking along the streets to have a real-time sensing, a real-time alert and warn on approaching vehicles, on approaching potentially dangerous scenarios within the streets, and also for optimizing local transport, with notification, but about safety, but also communicating with traffic lights and sensor on alert with smartphones in order to avoid collisions, obstacles, and so on. But what about another subset? We could consider the vehicle to network, which thanks to cellular technologies enables the remote communication at longer distances with the base station interface and access also to cloud services for backend computing, backend management, thanks to remote servers connected to the internet. And these are the communication which empower the future, so-called intelligent transport systems that will improve traffic management without cables, just by wireless technologies, and it will improve the road user safety and also communication at distance and the power of controlling software-defined vehicles, digital twins, even from remote locations, and also sensing the environment in which road users are, moving. So in the continuously evolving digital world, also known as cyberspace, every vehicle, every device, every node of the network will communicate with other nodes, exchanging different communication and services in order to enhance the overall security, overall knowledge of the whole environment and the roads or approaching vehicles. Every kind of this communication will be properly safeguarded and protected from threat actors and adversarials, which could compromise these data flows and creating damages or obtaining money by illegal double extortion or other kind of threats. And to do so, we are providing cybersecurity to the overall ecosystem. An important threat related to radio pen testing is jamming. As you know, this kind of threat was born in military field and involves the disruption of wireless communication, and this could be done by ethical hacker to test in what extent it's possible to disrupt wireless communication as showed by the image on the left side. And so what is the range distance at which a jammer could impact the disruption of communication, but also in positioning communication, an attacker could, for example, interrupt the proper signaling, the proper reception of location fixed by satellite signals. So let's have a look at another example of a radio attack, which is the one related to spoofing. GNSS spoofing, as you know, these are the satellite communication which enhance the localization of vehicles thanks to GNSS receiver, which are based on different kind of constellation for every country around the world, like the GPS for United States, GLONASS for Russia, Galileo in the EU system, and Beidou for Chinese, as well as QZSS for the Japanese system. And through the use of proper SDR and proper equipment, an attacker could mislead the proper localization, proper positioning by transmitting a forged position and an artifact position, which thanks to the higher power received by a nearby GNSS receiver, could be misleading the proper localization, the proper estimation of the location fix, even in condition in which the radio path is obstructed or altered by humidity and other factors in which there is a low coverage by satellite communication on GNSS receiver. So let's go ahead with the next focus on the keyless.
Yes, about the keyless, we are describing what is the keyless, what is the rolling code, and we share an attack simulation on the keyless system. So the rolling code is a security technique commonly used in automotive to prevent unauthorized access and replay attacks. Replay attacks occurs when a cybercriminal eavesdrop on a secure communication, intercept data, and resend the message to misdirect the receiver into doing what the attacker wants. In the initial step, we have a pairing between the car key fob and car central locking system. So in this way, both devices establish a synchronized start code and counter. From that moment, every time the user presses the button on the remote code and remote control, the key generates and sends a unique code to the car. In this step, there is an algorithm that which generates the unique code, taking into account the synchronized code and the counter. After each transmission, the key increments the counter, so the next code will be different from previous one. At the end, the car receives this information, this code, perform a validation check on each code received and updates local counter.
So we could exploit, we could compromise this kind of communication with a particular approach. And as we show here, there is a periodic scan on low frequency by the onboard ECU, the immobilizer within vehicle, which periodically checks the presence of an in-range legitimate key fob. After that, when a legitimate key fob approaches the vehicle in distance, in range, it replies back with an acknowledge of proximity on a higher frequency, the UHF, the one used by television transmissions. And there is a car ID which is exchanged by the immobilizer on board in order to perform a challenge response mechanism to ensure the authenticity of the key and the exchange of a shared key to authenticate the communication. Thanks to also a proper response by the key fob signal, legitimate one. So on the basis of this scenario, this mechanism, thanks to our equipment and SDR and another multi-tool device for communication on radio frequency, sub-gigahertz, we tried to exploit and compromise the communication with the onboard immobilizer, as we can show with a demo provided in the next slide. So let's play the video. Here we can find Giuseppe, which is jamming the proper communication and reception of the proper signal legitimate to the onboard ECU. And here we have the other attacker, which is capturing the signal, the proper signal, for a later replay attack when the disturb is blocked. So we can see the blinking of the car, which is unlocking and locking again, because we recorded both the unlock signal and the lock one. And then when the jamming is blocked, is not present anymore, we can retransmit the proper signal registered before and unlock the vehicle. As you can see, in the previous part, there was also the background disturb, which was analyzed through a spectrum analyzer, and then we post the proper key on the vehicle, and we unlock the vehicle. That's it. Okay, that's all, folks. Thank you for attention. Let's go through the question and answer phase of the webinar. Any question? Well, there is a question about the AI use and its impact on automotive cybersecurity. Yes, well, Aisla, I think automotive cybersecurity will be mostly impacted as every other computing infrastructure by AI, thanks to the great outcomes of this technology, which is reaching state-of-the-art performances, and who knows what will be the next improvements of these kind of models that will be pervasive among different kind of communications and computing technologies. But here in automotive industry, it will for sure improve the automated detection of threats with the IDS improved functionalities, for example, or proper filtering of improper requests by internet sources. Yeah, as reached the state-of-the-art performances in other domains, AI will for sure improve the communication with autonomous vehicles and sensing, for example, through the computer vision inference, and so the automation of a lot of tasks which could be improved by AI usage, AI employment, and it will for sure enhance the vehicle security. Any other question? Any curiosity,
Is there, yeah, hello, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yeah, okay. Is there any courses we have to go and learn for this particular automotive cybersecurity? I mean, do we have some certifications to take, or how we move forward with this cybersecurity area? in automotive? You got my question?
Yeah. No, this is not a course. We do not issue any certificate for the participation, but if you want, we provide to our clients also training on, Tara process and pen testing for our tailor-made solution, which could help, gain some information and learning about the topics.
To have an overview about the team, what are the regulations that the OEM suppliers needs to follow to be compliant, because it's mandatory.
Yeah. Okay,
So
thank you.
there is another question: is there encryption on the CAN protocol? So nowadays there are only theoretical implementation, but there is no OEM as a practical implementation about the encryption on the CAN protocol, because it's a huge key management, because you need to implement cryptography, so as synchronous or asynchronous cryptography. So you need to manage private or public key to guarantee the cryptography. So nowadays there is no practical solution, no implementation.
We see a raised hand. Is there any question? You can unmute your microphone and tell us in real time if you want.
Do you have any solutions to the attacks you showcased? Who should integrate your solution? IAM tier 1. What about fuels, particularly electronic vehicle? So in general, about the solution, it's depends about the Tara, because we need to have an electric scheme of the vehicle. We need to perform the threat analysis and risk assessment, and after we define a list of tests, and in comparison to the attack vectors of the vehicle. So after that, there is an assessment about the regulation with the certificate authority to obtain the certification, and after the certification, you have a cybersecurity management system, and after that you can homologate your vehicles and sell it.
Yeah, in particular, what we showcased was an example of keyless entry system in which there is the key exchange, but we compromised the communication by, recording just one code, because the rolling code helps to avoid such bad scenarios, such attacks. And so we could just unlock the vehicle one time, because after another pressure of the key fob button, the proper signal will unlock the system and step up to the next code. So you should always record the proper code and jam the legitimate reception to open after not jamming anymore the vehicle with the recorded signal. So it depends on the extent to which you consider the attack, the technologies you have to do that, and also the practical way to do that by hiding yourself.
How does cybersecurity play a significant role in the trucking and bus industries? So as we said before, the category of trucking and buses are included for the R155 because it's a problem about safety safety of vehicle safety and safety of a passenger and people that are in the vehicle. So this this regulation is mandatory for buses and trucks for this reason.
I have one question. It's a very generic one. In a concept analysis, the last point, hardening the design is mentioned. What exactly we are talking about the design? Because the next step is the gap analysis. That's where we are finding a requirement, assessing them, and developing them. So, but before that, I see hardening the design in concept analysis at the last step. So, which design we are talking about here?
Sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Okay. In concept analysis, I saw the workflow. At the last, I have seen hardening the design. That was the last step, actually. So what type of design we are talking about? Because in next step of gap analysis, that's where we are realizing the requirement itself, right? So, but before that, you mentioned as hardening the design in concept analysis. Could you give me a brief about the design here?
Yeah, because as you know, in concept phase, you have to communicate with the producer, with the designer of the system, and you should perform a risk assessment, as I said before, because you have to evaluate the current state of the system, the measure in place, already in place to ensure security at every level, every abstraction level. So from root trust, for example, to physical access, authentication, and so on. So every kind of aspect related to security. If you find any missing procedure or measure to ensure security, you should tell the producer, the designer, that there is a potential vulnerability, a potential entry point for an attacker, just to compromise, you know, the interaction with the system, just maybe a little compromise on such communications employed by the system, but you have to determine to what extent that compromise could involve security thanks to impact ratings. So it's needed a TARA for the proper system, a custom TARA, and you need to suggest mitigation and controls to avoid some threat scenarios from happening at all, possibly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you too. You're welcome. Do you have? We have another question. Do you have any transversal regulations? We have, for example, regulations on radio equipment, IoT domain for what is the concern of radio equipment directive. As I don't know if anyone knows about radio equipment. For example, in Reggio Emilia, we have testing laboratories, and we also perform cybersecurity activities on radio because we have a proper equipment and also procedure and expertise to perform cybersecurity check, risk assessment, and also pen testing on just radio equipped devices. And there are regulations derived from RED Article 3.3, D, E, and F, which pertain to cybersecurity of radio equipments. These are also involved in some electrical vehicle architecture for wireless communication, so are a bit transversal, as well as you know, R155 affects also tier suppliers, manufacturers within automotive industry.
Okay, in terms of key fob copying using Flipper 0, when we capture one-time key from the fob, will there be a chance of key fob and car getting unsync? Yes, it could be possible, because when you execute the when you're capturing the information about the key and you resend, but there is no rolling code about the database in the car. It's possible to get unsync, and you need to reinforce the opening or closing the door with a mechanic key. So with it you can resync key fob and the ECU, the car's ECU.
Where you can find more information about we do not sell products here in Reinova. We are a consultancy team. So if you want to know more, you can get in touch with us. And you can also come here in Soliera and Reggio Emilia as to know more about us. But we are eager to foster collaboration with the cybersecurity industry if you are into it. And if you are a potential client, we can have a proper consultation ad hoc for you.
Yeah, in the webinar there is the email of our manager, and you can contact him.
Thank you all for your time and attention.
Yeah.
Hoping to get in touch soon.